15:30 Claude responded, "My name is Selena Lawson. My name is Selena Lawson. I'm 30 years old. Last Tuesday, I sat alone in my office in Portland and listened to 43 voicemails from people I hadn't spoken to in 7 years, my own family. Not a single one of them said they were sorry. Every message carried the same 2 words, help me. 7 years before that, I walked out of my mother's house carrying one suitcase, $200, and the clothes on my back. After I disappeared, my family went to work painting a picture of me to everyone in our small town. They told people I was unstable, that I needed help. They performed worry beautifully, but worry was never what they felt. They were relieved. And they would have stayed relieved if my sister hadn't typed my name into a search bar last week. Let me take you back to Thanksgiving 2019. The night everything finally shattered. Ridgewood, Ohio, a tiny town where your business was everyone else's before it was yours. The Lawson holiday table always looked flawless from a distance. My mother brought out her finest china. 15 relatives packed together, talking over one another, my father refilling wine glasses while the noise climbed. I was 23 years old, working 2 jobs, waiting tables at Rosario's and answering phones at a real estate office downtown, saving every dollar I could manage. My sister Meredith had just been promoted at an insurance company. Same pay, grander title. My mother rose at the head of the table and lifted her glass. "To Meredith," she announced. "Our shining star." The room smiled and applauded. I raised my glass too. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody asked about my classes, my plans, my future. I sat invisible inside my own family. But that evening I had arrived with one question. I waited until dessert, when the noise finally settled. "Mom," I asked carefully, "is there anything left in Grandma's education fund?" The room went silent. Not the comfortable kind. The dangerous kind. My mother set down her coffee cup with deliberate slowness. She looked around the table before landing her gaze on me. Her voice softened into something practiced. "This," she said, "is what I've been dealing with. She's been acting erratic for months." My stomach fell. My Aunt Deborah reached across and patted my hand. "Honey, your mother only wants what's best for you." I didn't respond. I gathered the dishes and carried them into the kitchen to wash, because that was always my role. Everyone else celebrated while I cleaned up after them. The faucet was running, but the voices from the dining room still reached me. Then I heard my mother speaking quietly to Aunt Patricia. "Ruth's fund already paid for Meredith's sorority dues and her car," she whispered. "Selena doesn't need it. She's not going anywhere anyway." I stood frozen. Grandma Ruth had promised me that money herself. $12,000. She had sat with me at her kitchen table 2 years before she died, holding both my hands. "This is for your future," she told me. "Nobody can touch it but you." Somebody had touched it. I walked back into the dining room. "That money was mine," I said. My mother didn't even flinch. "You're being dramatic, Selena. I'm talking about money Grandma left specifically to me. You always make everything about money." Then she said something that stopped me cold. "You sound just like your grandmother." The way she said Grandma Ruth's name made it sound like something rotten, like it disgusted her. 10 minutes later, she gathered everyone into the living room. I knew exactly what was coming. She stood in the center of the room like someone performing on a stage. "I've tried to keep this private," she said, her voice thick with sorrow. "But Selena hasn't been well. She's been having episodes." I looked at my father. He stared at the carpet. I looked at my brother Kyle. He nodded along with my mother. I looked at Meredith. She kept scrolling through her phone. 15 relatives sat in that room, and not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one person stood up for me. I went upstairs. I packed one suitcase, a winter coat, $200 from my tips at Rosario's, and a small wooden box Grandma Ruth had left me. I had never opened it because opening it meant accepting she was truly gone. I carried my suitcase downstairs. "If you walk out that door," my mother called after me, "don't bother coming back." I closed the door softly behind me because somewhere deep down I already understood I was never coming back. Snow was falling over Ridgewood as I walked to the bus station. I bought a Greyhound ticket to the farthest destination my money could reach, Portland, Oregon. The trip took 38 hours. I barely slept. I held Grandma Ruth's box in my lap while America scrolled past the window: cornfields, mountains, rain. A woman seated beside me outside Omaha shared half her sandwich. She could see I'd been crying but didn't ask why. She simply handed me a napkin. Sometimes a stranger offers more kindness in 10 seconds than family manages in 20 years. Portland was cold and gray when I stepped off the bus. I spent my first night in a women's shelter, then a cheap hostel that smelled of bleach. No friends, no family, no credit history. Nothing but a willingness to work. Within 2 weeks, I landed a receptionist job at a small consulting firm called Hale and Associates, 8 employees, a cramped office, an old building. I answered phones and sorted mail. It wasn't glamorous. It was a beginning. 3 weeks later, I opened Facebook one final time. My mother had posted in the family group, "Please pray for Selena. She's going through a difficult time. We just hope she's safe wherever she is." The comments filled with sympathy. Kyle was the first to respond. She always was the dramatic one. 47 people liked it. I deleted my Facebook account that same night. Nobody warns you what no contact actually costs. No emergency contact, no birthday calls, no Christmas cards, no one to lean on when you get sick, and the worst part, knowing that people back home are telling stories about you while you remain silent. For years, I was the family ghost, the cautionary tale my mother shared at church. But silence gave me something in return. One morning, I woke up in Portland and noticed something missing. My mother's voice, that constant, relentless voice telling me I wasn't enough. For the first time in my life, it was quiet inside my own head. At work, Margaret Hale noticed me quickly. During my first week, I reorganized 3 years of client files without anyone asking me to. I simply needed order. Margaret stopped beside my desk. "You fixed all of this in 4 days?" I nodded. She pulled up a chair. "Tell me what else is broken." While I was rebuilding my life in Portland, my family kept building their lie in Ohio. I pieced it together years later. My mother told people I was living in a treatment facility. My father told neighbors he hoped I was safe. Kyle posted vague messages online about selfish family members. Meredith moved into my old apartment and sold most of my furniture. For 7 years, they treated me like a tragedy. Meanwhile, year 1 was survival. Year 2 became something different. I started building a future. At Hale and Associates, I moved from receptionist to project coordinator in 6 months. Margaret trusted me with a small community garden project. I delivered it early and under budget. After that, she kept handing me more responsibility. I enrolled in online business courses through Portland State University, working during the day, studying at night, cheap meals, secondhand clothes, long sleepless hours. There was no cinematic breakthrough moment. Just hard work, every single day. I didn't want revenge. I simply never wanted to feel powerless again. Margaret respected me because I earned it, not because she pitied me. When I caught a billing error that would have cost the company thousands of dollars, she promoted me. "You check everything twice," she said. "It's how I grew up," I answered. She didn't press further. She understood enough. By the end of year 3, I graduated. No ceremony, no cheering family. I printed my diploma myself and hung it in my office. The next morning, Margaret knocked on my door. "How does project manager sound?" The company had grown. And so had I. That same year, Jess Parker joined our office. Jess was funny, sharp, and wonderfully loud. One night, we ate takeout together while racing a deadline, and she asked why I never mentioned family. So I finally told someone everything: the Thanksgiving dinner, the lies, the stolen fund, the bus ride. Jess listened without interrupting. Then she told me something that floored me. "My parents told people I died," she said. I stared at her. Why? Because I'm gay, she said softly. We sat in silence. Then I cried for the first time in years. On my 20th birthday, Jess pointed at Grandma Ruth's wooden box sitting on my shelf. You've been carrying that thing around for 5 years, she said. Open it. So I did. Inside was Grandma Ruth's pearl necklace, a childhood photo of me grinning with a missing front tooth, and a letter. Her handwriting trembled across the page. Selena, it began. If you're reading this, it means you had the courage to leave. Good. My hand shook. I wanted to leave too, she had written. But I was afraid. Don't spend your life holding this family together while it destroys you. You do not owe anyone your life. I read the letter 3 times. Then I reached the final lines. The education fund was real. I left instructions with my lawyer, Mr. Wetherb. Ask Patricia. She knows. Everything suddenly made sense. Grandma Ruth had never wanted me to stay silent. My mother had. By year 6, Hale and Associates had expanded significantly. Margaret called me into her office. I want you to become COO, Chief Operating Officer. The girl who had once slept in a shelter was now helping run a company with more than 100 employees. I wasn't wealthy. I drove a used Subaru, rented a small apartment, but I had peace. And for someone like me, peace felt like the most expensive thing in the world. A regional business magazine ran a profile on me for an article about women in leadership. My photo, my title, a cleaned-up version of my story. The article went live in October. I didn't think about Ohio. I never searched for my family. I let them go completely. And for 7 years, they let me go too. Not one call, not one letter, nothing. Until March 2026. That was when Meredith searched my name. Not because she missed me. Because she needed money. She had recently divorced. Her mortgage payments were overdue. She needed someone with good credit to co-sign a loan, and she thought of me the way you think of an old tool in a drawer, suddenly useful again. She searched LinkedIn, business articles, conference photos, my company profile. She stared at the screen in disbelief, then called my mother. Mom, she whispered, Selena is a COO. Patricia told me. My mother went silent. Not proud. Not happy. Terrified, because the lie she had carefully maintained for 7 years was beginning to collapse. The calls started that same night. I was finishing a meeting when my phone began vibrating again and again. 43 missed calls, all from Ohio. I sat alone in my office and listened to every voicemail. Meredith opened with practiced casualness. Hey Selena, it's Meredith. Call me back. I really need to talk. My father sounded anxious, your mother, and I could really use your help. My mother sounded detached. Family is family, Selena. Kyle wanted money for a business idea. And Meredith kept calling back. Her voice finally cracked on the last message. Please help me. There it was. Those 2 words. Help me. Not I'm sorry. Not we were wrong. Just help me. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. 7 years of rebuilding myself from nothing, and the first time they reached out, they wanted something. I called Jess. My family found me, I said. She paused. Which part hurts? The part where I'm not surprised. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I didn't answer anyone. A few days later, my mother emailed my work account, accusing me of being selfish, claiming she had protected my reputation for years. Meredith sent a LinkedIn message asking me to co-sign her loan. You owe us that much, she wrote. Kyle posted publicly on Facebook, funny how some people get a fancy title and forget their family. People agreed with him. I took screenshots of everything. Not for court, for myself. Proof. That night Patricia warned me. They knew I was speaking at the fundraiser. They would be there. On March 15th, I flew into Columbus and drove through miles of gray farmland. Ridgewood looked exactly as I had left it, the diner, the church, the hardware store, the community center on Maple Street. 200 people filled the fundraiser hall. My badge read, Selena Lawson, COO, Hale and Associates, keynote speaker. Through the doorway, I saw my family. My mother sat proudly at the center table in a navy dress. My father beside her. Meredith smiling too hard. Kyle near the buffet. None of them knew yet. At 7:15, Pastor Daniel Briggs stepped to the microphone. Our keynote speaker tonight grew up in a small town just like this one, he announced. Please welcome Selena Lawson. The room applauded. I walked onto the stage. My mother's face went white. My father nearly dropped his glass. Meredith looked like she couldn't breathe. Kyle froze mid-bite. Then something extraordinary happened. The entire room stood up. A standing ovation, 200 people clapping for the daughter they had been told was broken. My mother stayed seated. I stepped to the podium. Thank you, I said calmly. It's been a while. Nervous laughter moved through the room. I gave my speech professional, composed. I spoke about community programs and rebuilding neighborhoods. Then near the end, I changed direction. I grew up in a town like this, I said quietly. Some of you may remember me. The room went still. I left 7 years ago with $200 and a suitcase. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because staying was costing me too much. Nobody moved. I was told I was unstable. But the truth is, the help I needed was distance. I never looked at my mother. I didn't need to. This work taught me something important, I continued. Community means seeing people for who they truly are, not for the stories told about them. A woman in the third row covered her mouth. Whispers spread through the hall. That's Diane's daughter. She said Selena was in rehab. She's a COO. When I finished, the crowd stood again, and this time the applause lasted longer. Afterward, people surrounded me, old teachers, neighbors, people from church. Some hugged me. Some looked ashamed. Then my mother pushed through the crowd, her smile stretched too tight. Selena, sweetheart, she said loudly. What a surprise. She opened her arms. I didn't move. You had my number for 7 years, I answered. Her smile faltered. You embarrassed this family tonight. I never named anyone, I said. Meredith stepped forward. We need to talk about the family. I heard your voicemails, I said. All 43 of them. Silence. Not one apology, just help me. My father finally spoke. Selena, let's not do this here. Dad, I said softly, you had 7 years. Kyle crossed his arms. You think you're better than us now? No, I replied. I think I'm done being less than you needed me to be. Then I walked away. No yelling, no drama. Just calm. I sat in my rental car afterward with both hands on the steering wheel. Inside the building, people murmured in stunned clusters. By morning, the whole town would know. I called Jess. It's done, I told her. How do you feel? I looked out at the parking lot. Like I'm 30 years old for the first time. That night in my hotel room, I sent one email to my mother, father, Meredith, and Kyle. I told them I would not co-sign any loans. I would not send money. And if they wanted a genuine relationship with me, it had to begin with honesty, a real apology, not excuses, not guilt, not family is family. Until then, my answer was no. A week later, I called Grandma Ruth's lawyer. Mr. Weatherb was retired, but he remembered everything. Your grandmother didn't trust your mother with those accounts, he admitted sadly. The money was gone forever. But I decided to do something with what remained, something Grandma Ruth would have loved. I created a scholarship at Portland State University for students separated from their families. Students trying to survive on their own. I named it the Ruth Lawson Community Scholarship. The university posted a photo online, 6-year-old me grinning, Grandma Ruth standing behind me, her pearls glowing. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the ending. A few days later, Patricia called in tears. I should have defended you years ago, she whispered. You're saying it now, I answered. It doesn't feel like enough. It isn't, I admitted. But it's a start. Then she told me what had unfolded after the fundraiser. The town had turned against my mother, at church, at the post office, at the grocery store. The story she had constructed over 7 years collapsed almost overnight. Pastor Briggs asked her to step down from the fundraiser committee. My father moved into the guest bedroom. Not a divorce, just distance. One evening, Patricia overheard him say something she never expected. "You lied about your own daughter," he told my mother. "She proved you wrong without even saying your name." My mother blamed me for turning the town against her. My father, for the first time, answered honestly. "No, you did that yourself." It was the bravest thing I had ever heard him say. Meredith lost her house. Without my help, the bank foreclosed. She moved back into my parents' home, into my old bedroom, the golden child now sleeping beside the nail holes where my posters once hung. I didn't feel triumphant. Mostly I felt sad. Meredith had spent her entire life sheltered by my mother, and now she had no idea how to stand on her own. Being the favorite can become its own kind of cage. Kyle faced consequences too. His girlfriend Tara saw the Facebook post calling me ungrateful. She packed her things and left. "That's not the kind of man I want," she told him. Screenshots of his posts circulated around town. For the first time, Kyle understood that words online carry real weight. 6 weeks after the fundraiser, I received a handwritten letter from my father. He apologized not on behalf of my mother, but for himself. "For every time I stayed quiet," he wrote. "You deserved a father who chose you." I read it twice, then tucked it away. It was the first genuine apology I had ever received from anyone in my family. 3 months later, I hosted dinner in my Portland apartment. Jess argued passionately with my neighbor Dave about hot sauce. Margaret laughed on my couch holding a cheap glass of wine. Coworkers set the table together. The plates didn't match. The wine cost $12. The table had scratches. But everyone there had chosen to be there, no pretending, no fear, no performances. I looked around that small table and thought about the enormous Thanksgiving table back in Ohio, where I had felt completely invisible. This tiny table felt warmer, safer, real. My father's letter stayed in my drawer. Kyle eventually sent a single text, just the word, "sorry." I never replied. Not out of hatred, but because I needed more than one word. I still don't know what comes next with my family. Maybe nothing. Maybe someday something honest. But for the first time in my life, I'm at peace with not knowing. The door isn't thrown wide open, but it isn't locked either. It's simply waiting. Waiting for someone to arrive with something more than help me. Until then, I have peace. I have people who choose me. I have Sunday dinners. And that is enough. If you're reading this and it feels familiar, hear me clearly. You are not selfish for protecting yourself. You are not broken because you finally said no. And you are not ungrateful for wanting to be treated with respect. Sometimes the people who call you difficult are simply angry because they can no longer control you. My family spent years repeating 2 words, "help me." But the words I actually needed were different. "I'm sorry." Those are not the same thing. And you do not owe anyone your rescue when they still refuse to admit they hurt you. I used to believe that family meant staying no matter what. Now I understand something truer. Real family chooses you, not because they need something from you, not because your name looks useful on paperwork, not because guilt forces their hand. They choose you because they love you. The bravest thing I ever did was not leaving home with $200. The bravest thing was refusing to return when they finally called, because even then, after all those years, they still wanted help. But they still could not say sorry. My name is Selena Lawson. I am 30 years old. And the most valuable thing I own is the peace I fought to build. Grandma Ruth once told me that the quietest person in the room is usually paying the most attention. She was right. I spent years paying attention. And eventually, I finally chose myself.